So one of the ways that you can tell if you're on the right side or the wrong side is what does Russian state media say about you? And if they're saying good things about you, that's probably a bad thing. And if they're saying bad things about you, that's probably a good thing. So we're going to watch about Viktor Orban meeting with Trump in just a moment. Before we do, just for some backstory, Trump met with Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago, and Viktor Orban was saying that Trump will not give a penny to Ukraine if he wins. So let's watch what is being said on Russian Media Monitor, looking at Russian state media. Special thanks to the Russian Media Monitor, as always. If Trump wins the election, he won't give a penny to Ukraine. These are the words of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who came over to visit Donald Trump. According to him, if Americans stop sponsoring the war, Europeans will follow suit. Now, I'm not sure that that's actually the case, that that's going to happen. I think what's happened since about November, when we hit this impasse between the House and the Senate, was that the Europeans gradually woke up to the reality that they need to step up in a meaningful way in order to support Ukraine, because they can't necessarily depend on the U.S. getting things there or getting things there in a timely way. So I don't think that that's actually the message, but I think that's the message that Orban and Trump have been pushing out. Europeans will follow suit. This way, the conflict will resolve itself. Well, by resolve itself, she means that Russia will be able to run roughshod over Ukraine. Trump is planning to end the war in 24 hours. The scheme suits us well. Yeah, of course it does, because you'll be the victor. You can run in, grab the land of Ukraine's land, and then declare it yours and say, take it back if you can. And if they don't have the resources to take it back, they can't. That's a horrible way of letting this play out. It violates everything that we know about international relations and the rule of law and the framework for how countries deal with other countries. And it makes World War III a greater possibility and makes other dictators like Xi more likely to act out. The scheme suits us well. Orban believes that liberal democracy doesn't work. He is friends with Putin. He is friends with Xi. Okay, so let's look at Orban. It's a little bit about Orban from Wikipedia. Starting with the second Orban government in 2010, during his uninterrupted stay in power, Orban has curtailed press freedom, weakened judicial independence, undermined multi-party democracy, amounting to a democratic backsliding during Orban's tenure. He frequently styles himself as a defender of Christian values in the face of European Union, which he claims is anti-nationalist, which they kind of are. I mean, they all want to get together, and anti-Christian, which is partly fair as far as the social values and partly not fair. His portrayal of the EU as a political foe while accepting its money and funneling it into his allies and relatives has led to accusations that his government represents a kleptocracy. It has also been characterized as a hybrid regime and a dominant party system. Orban defends his policies as illiberal Christian democracy. Okay, so what is illiberal democracy? The term illiberal democracy describes a governing system that hides its non-democratic practices behind formally democratic institutions and procedures. It means they do the veneer of democracy, but they're really kind of manipulating the system. The rulers of an illiberal democracy may ignore or bypass constitutional limits on their power. While liberal democracies protect individual rights and freedoms, illiberal democracies do not. So you want to live in a liberal democracy, and this is not liberal conservative. This just means that you have freedoms that are protected by the rule of law. Elections in an illiberal democracy are often manipulated or rigged. It's to give the veneer that we're all on the same team. And we're going to come back to that later on in the three big stories. I'm going to talk about that. So come back to that video later. Being used to legitimize and consolidate the incumbent rather than to choose the country's leaders and policies. So there's a big difference between a liberal and illiberal democracy. Okay. Continuing. This is what Trump said about Orban on Friday. There's nobody that's better, smarter, or a better leader than Viktor Orban. He is fantastic, the Prime Minister of Hungary. Okay, now, you have to take that a little bit with a grain of salt, because Trump praises anybody who also thinks highly of Trump. And as soon as you don't think highly of Trump, you're the worst scumbag, worst person on earth, that kind of thing. But if you think highly of him, he'll say nice things about you. Donald Trump is not monogamous in his love of foreign dictators. He adores Vladimir Putin. Now he's a fan of Viktor Orban. Trump is allowing Orban to be the intermediary between Putin and Trump. The main question about his meeting at Mar-a-Lago is, what did Orban convey to Trump about Ukraine's future and Putin's intentions? So we don't actually know. They're speculating about this now, but if they are talking about that, and I'm guessing that they are, it's probably nothing good. So now, this idea that Trump just loves dictators, he loves anybody who says nice things about him, but he certainly seems to have a bent toward dealing with people that just make things happen, and dictators tend to just make things happen. That doesn't mean that that's going to turn into an authoritarian regime in the United States. I see people put these comments all the time. Slow down. I don't think it'll be healthy, but I don't think it'll be that. You see Handmaid's Tale memes and things along those lines. I think that's a little overblown, but he does seem to have too much appreciation for dictators of whom he should be skeptical about. Trump said that he can end the Ukrainian crisis in 24 hours. This simply means handing Ukraine over to Putin on a silver platter. He has a very clear vision that is hard to disagree with. He will not give a single penny for the Russo-Ukrainian war. That's why the war will end. If the Americans don't give money and weapons, along with the Europeans, the war will end. And if the Americans don't give money, then the Europeans won't be able to fund the war alone. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think the Europeans would be able to stand on their own, but it would be a much harder road. The trick is that the Europeans would not have access to the vast arsenal of American weapons, but we'll come back to that in just a little bit. And then the war will end. Donald Trump may not be the president of the U.S. yet, but his party is stopping Democrats from spending money on the war. As a Republican, that grieves me to hear him say that. In continuation of this conversation, Hungary's foreign affairs minister said, Europe will immediately change its position on Ukraine if Trump wins in the U.S. elections. Therefore, we need President Trump to support this victory. We believe that the course of action he has planned will be the ideal way to achieve it in Ukraine. He also said that during Orban's talks with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, you're watching this footage right now, Trump confirmed information that he is not planning to send either weapons or money to Ukraine. At least he won't do it for free. Now that's a really telling last little bit. At least he won't do it for free. Trump is still kind of a wild card in that regard. Like, he may still do something if he can figure out how to cut a deal, but I wouldn't bet on it necessarily. Okay, two more quick things and then we'll be done. Viktor Orban saying Donald Trump is a man of peace. Under his first presidential term, he ended wars and didn't start new ones. The world needs leaders like him more than ever. Okay, so man of peace. If I'm walking down the street and I see a jogger just minding his business, jogging down the street, and then I see a mugger mug the jogger, to not interfere with that because I'm a man of peace is not being really peaceful or even morally just. In that scenario, I need to intervene, and the mugger needs a free jiu-jitsu lesson. That's the way to get to peace in a real sense, not by ignoring the problem and saying it's not my business. Second, here's another one. So the Biden-Harris campaign puts out this. Trump brags about bringing authoritarian Viktor Orban to Mar-a-Lago. I get along with him very well. Let's hear what Trump has to say.
Our country is no longer respected. The people representing us are not respected. I just had Viktor Orban, a tough man from Hungary. He was at my place in Florida. I get along with him very well, friendly, but I have respect for him. He made the statement. I thought it was a wonderful statement. He said, we'll solve the problems of the world if Donald Trump comes back. He said Russia was afraid of him. China was afraid of him. We had no problems whatsoever under Trump.
Okay, so he's saying we'll solve the problems of the world. That's why he likes Orban, because Russia was afraid of him. China was afraid of him. Now, conservatives hear that, and I'm not excusing Trump. I think he would be a bad thing in this scenario. Now, Republicans hear that last little bit and they think, oh, that's right, Trump will keep Russia at bay and he'll make sure that these guys come to terms. But they are not hearing it the same way that you heard it all along or that RT heard it. They could be entirely wrong. Probably they are, but that's the way that they're hearing it. Okay, That's all that I have. What comments or questions do you have? Put it in the comments below. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.